This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to WordPress Basics. My name is Shauna, and I'm the Outreach and Continuing Education Consultant at SWLS. Thank you for joining us this morning. Before we get started, please be sure to mute your mics, which it looks like most people have already done, when you're not speaking. And you can most easily find the mic and camera options at the bottom of your screen. They're green circles when you hover your mouse down there. There's also a gray circle with 3 dots that gives you the options when you hover your mouse over your face. If you need any assistance, though, please feel free to use the chat box on the right-hand side, which I will be monitoring for us today. And so I have a feeling we'll have some questions during our time with Anne today, so we will get started. Today, we're welcoming Anne Hamland. Anne is from the Wisconsin Valley Library Service. And take it away, Anne.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. This is my passion side of my job. It's just one of my duties. And while we're getting started here, I just wanted to give you a visual on how many websites I support. Up in, if list is in blue and purple is WVLS, and that teeny weeny green guy up top is Northern Waters. So that is where I live for website land. First, I wanted to say thank you for coming because you've already shown that you are caring about your website. But I really encourage you to set more time aside in addition to this time today, every month, to pay attention and put some love into your website. The next thing I'm going to do is ask you to turn your cell phone over and clear everything off your desk, because this is one of the very few times, especially if you're in a smaller library with a smaller staff, that you have dedicated to your website. So let's give it our full attention. And I know that's hard because you have a lot of things on the back of your mind. And in many cases, in our libraries, a small staff means a staff of 1 or 2, and that you have a lot of other duties that are pulling at your attention. So thank you. Let's get started. Surprise, you're a webmaster. Did you know when you took that position to be a director or a staff member at a library that you'd be in charge of a website? I sure didn't. And here we are, right? So just in this first section, I had a couple points that for you to be working on, to put into your website toolkit. Open up a Word document or a notebook and park all of your website information into one place. Maybe it's a Google document that you share across staff, but have a nice little toolbox for yourself to park this information. Because if you don't know this information, it will be very difficult for you to maintain and edit and care for your website. So, do you know who edits the content of your library's website currently? Do you pay someone to do this? Are you in charge of it? It's good to know those things. Is there anyone on your team that also has experience that you can bounce ideas off of? Where is your library's domain name or your URL at the top of the screen? Where is that serviced? Is it serviced by GoDaddy, Wix? Is it lumped into your WordPress package through WordPress? On top of that, so you've purchased your URL, but where does the content or the meat of your website live? Does that also live with your GoDaddy or your Wix or your WordPress website? And with that, who supports it? Does your technology department support it, or do your servicers support it? Because if something goes wrong with any of these pieces, you're going to want to know who you can call. You want to know who you can pick up in your phone book listings to rely on, because you don't need to know every single thing about your website. You're a librarian. Your focus is on serving the public and all of your jobs, not being a super expert in your website, right? A website is supposed to be a low stress tool. So what we've all been waiting for is a casual tour of our website. I'm just going to pause there and see if we have any questions about that first little bit.
Great question. And we have no questions yet, but I've reminded folks in the chat box that you can use the chat box, and I'll be monitoring it for us today.
Yeah. And I just want to give you a pointer here. Shauna put the link to the Southwest Libraries directory, and it's not a bad idea to look at your neighboring libraries' websites. What do you like? What do you not like? What do you wish you had on your website? If there's a library that you love on social media, check out their website, right? I follow a lot of libraries on Facebook, on Instagram, but it's also a good idea to check out their website to see if there's ways that you can improve yours, or say, oh my gosh, we provide that, we need to highlight that. So part of being a web person is just casually keeping up with your neighbors and friends. So let's take a tour of the back end. And when you sign into your website, it might not look exactly like this, but it might be pretty close. This black control bar at the top and on the left should look familiar. This is called your dashboard, and I'm going to refer to the column on the left as the sidebar or the navigation bar. And when you're signed in WordPress, it greets you with this very nice howdy, which when I started doing websites, I really appreciated that, because that right off the bat kind of made things a little bit more lighthearted. So let's take a casual tour of the back. And these controls here actually look a lot like the block builder of WordPress, but we're on the back side. So the first thing to notice is up in the top left-hand corner, there's a WordPress W there, where they have the support page that I sent in that email ahead of time with Shauna. So if you ever have any questions, that's a great place to look. It might be overwhelming, but just remember you can do keyword searches or content searches, right? And they're there to support you. The same thing is true with all website supports. So if your library web page is through the city, that person also has access to support tools on whatever platform they're using. Next, you might see the name of your library, and if I click on it, it'll bring me to the front end of my website. Today, we are using the ever lovely Denver Memorial Library as our example. And this is a web page in development, so it's not accessible to the public right now. So, as you can tell, I clicked on the library's name and it brought me to the front. Now, if I'm on the front and I click on the library's name, it will bring me to the back. So that's a nice way to get to the front end of your website. Along the left-hand side, as we go down here, you'll see posts. And posts are applicable if you have a blog post on your website, a blog section on your website, and many websites do. That's where you could post library news, maybe weather contributing closings, celebrations. Maybe you're celebrating your 100th anniversary. Maybe you're promoting your story time or a speaker or an author visit. Media. Media is where all of the images and files, I should say PDF or handouts or brochures linked on or sitting on your website live. So these are all the images that are currently on the draft 3 Lakes website. And you can see some repetition. So there needs to be some cleanup here. And don't worry, I'm the one building this website. So they have made no mistakes. It's all me. And in the media library, if I click on an image, you can see it asks for a title, alternative text, a caption and description, and it provides a URL. This URL is really handy if you want to link a document without putting the document visually on the website. One thing I'm going to start talking about is accessibility. And for every single image, if it's not decorative, and every document, you should be putting in alternative text. Alternative text essentially describes or includes all textual information on an image. Now, if it's just a picture of a flower and it's really just for decoration, you don't need an alternative text. But this image is the title and logo, if you will, of the library's newsletter called the library page. And so it would benefit to put that information in alternative text. Let's keep going. Next, you'll see pages in the left-hand navigation bar. So if I click on pages, you guessed it, it brought me to an alphabetical list of all the pages I've created. And when I hover over those page names, I can click edit, quick edit, trash, dun, 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 and view. So quick edit does things like editing the hyperlink or the permalink, which is the name of the page, and maybe changing it from published to draft, those kind of things. On this page, you can sort it, you can see who published the page. So the super admin, that's me, the date, and this little icon here shows you if someone has submitted a comment on that page. Maybe you have a blog post on that page, so somebody has submitted a comment, it'll show up right there. The fun thing I do want to show you is you can click view and be taken to the front side. I do a right click and chose open in a new tab. And here's the new page in process of being built. Well, here's that blog post, a calendar, a couple buttons linked down to lower on the page. Or I can click edit and be taken to the back side, which resembles the WordPress block builder. On the backhand side, you'll see there's additional tools such as, if you want to publish it, if you want it visible to the public, if you want it to have a password, all kinds of stuff. On the bar, keep going down on the left-hand side, you'll see that we can go to a comments area. Right now, there are no comments. But if you look across these tabs here, you can see mine, pending, approved, spam, or trash. It is important to see that there's a spam box, because if you have a comment in here, you can move it to spam. Right off the bat, generally, if I see something in another language or something that has medical terminology or less tasteful language, that's generally going to be spam, and you can mark it as spam. Appearance, we're going to save that for last. Plugins. Plugins are the additional tools that you add to your website for specific functions. Now, it's best to keep the addition of plugins to a minimum, because the more plugins you add, the more risk you're adding to your website. So we did skip projects. So if you have a bazillion plugins on your website and those plugins are not updated for security, then naughty people can get into your website through those plugins and make trouble. So first of all, before you add a plugin, and we can walk through a few of those examples, make sure that it's updated very regularly and it's widely used. If you find an obscure plugin for a function, you might not want to choose that. You want to pick highly used, highly updated, reputable plugins. So what's a plugin? Well, the one function that a lot of websites have is a calendar, and sometimes there's not a great tool to integrate a calendar in a sexy appearing way. You want it to look sassy. Well, sometimes the default calendar option does not look good, or there is no default calendar option, or you don't want to embed a Google Calendar that's very simple, right? Your websites are public facing. You want them to be sassy and attract people. So that's one instance where you might add in a plugin. You can also view the details of specific plugins right here. And most times they do offer their own support for the plugins. You can search for new plugins if you click Add New Plugin, right? And the sky's the limit. There's all kinds of stuff, but it might not be for your website. My rule of thumb is use what your website is capable of, or design for the capability of your website. Because if your website doesn't feature an option, maybe there's a reason why. Or maybe you're trying to do something and you think it should be this specific function when it's really provided over here somewhere. So dig into the capabilities of your website first, and if you are still frustrated, reach out to support. And if it's not offered, consider if you truly need it. I know specifically we were interested in adding users. So on the left-hand side, you'll find users. And currently on this website, there is only one user. So let's walk through how to add a user. I'm building this website for the Denver Memorial Library, and they have a generic library email address, which is perfect for websites and longevity. So the new user's name will be C. Horant, and the email is librarian@denverlibrary.org. First name is Charlotte, last name is Horant, and I can generate a password. What I like to do is make up one associated with the month I'm creating it. So maybe March 2020 spring. And it'll tell you as you type along and add more features if it's a strong password or not. So I'm going to copy that password and put it in here so I can send that to her. And it looks like I skipped a letter. So it says March, exclamation mark, 2020 using a 0 and an O, and then spring. Spring. Now there's different roles here. Generally, you should have just a role listed as administrator, so that they can have full function. Now, if you're worried about things being deleted, then you can change the capabilities of each of these areas. Editor, for example, can contribute to the website, but I believe they cannot delete. And you can dig into the capabilities of these certain roles within the WordPress support website. So let's finish adding this new user. So now you can see we have two users in here, myself and Charlotte. It's important to use a generic email because let's say I put one in here for Hamland@wvls.org, and then I get hit by a bus or I'm out for 2 months. You don't want to have a specific email associated because you want to allow for access for your library team for the long run. Do you have any questions about that? Now we're going to go to settings, which you will hardly ever have to touch, but is very important. So right now you'll see that in the WordPress URL, it is listed as dev. That means it's in development. So I'm not going to touch that. But you can add things that increases traffic to your website, such as a tagline. The Demo Memorial Library has this mission tagline: explore, learn, create, and share. So if I were to look it up in a browser search, it would say Demo Memorial Library, and it would have that line there, and then it would say explore, learn, create, and share. So the more information that you can add to customize a website, the better it will be treated by a browser such as the Google search results. The more information, the more custom information, the easier it is for a web browser to read your website, the better you will be treated in search results. Your URL, your library search result, will be treated nicely and be bumped up towards the top. Time zone, you can pick your time zone. Site language, we use English. The date format, you want to have my advice is don't make people think. Don't put it into a format that you have to think about, okay, what is this? Is this March 11th, 2021? You don't want to make them question anything. And that's going to apply for everything along the way. And the week starts on Sunday. Writing. Default post category, that applies to blog posts. We don't need this information. Reading your homepage. You can set your homepage to be your homepage, or you could set your homepage to be your children's page or your blog page. This is where you tweak that information. Now, discussion is very important, the discussion settings. This is going to help you combat spam and people trying to get into your website with naughty intentions. So you can customize these things. You can have a setting that says a comment must be manually approved. So then if a comment was submitted on your website, you would see it as a little notification here. You would then pop in there and say yes, or spam, or trash, right? You can combat spam that would submit a comment with 10 links to go buy prescriptions or go buy pre-written papers, right? But this is my favorite spot. I call it the blackout list. Disallowed comment keys. When a comment contains any of these words in its content, author name, URL, email, IP, this is your swear word list. You can put in swear words, derogatory things, medication names, naughty internet terms. So you put all those in there, and I'm not going to give you examples. You know exactly what you need to put in there, okay? And then save your changes. Media, you can customize the thumbnail size, what is considered medium or large, and how to organize your files. Permalinks, you want to have your permalinks set to simple language. No library website in our area is big enough where you need to have a number scheme. If you take your URL from the top of a page, you want a human to be able to understand what that URL is. So an example would be the demerlibrary.org/children's, the demerlibrary.org/history and genealogy, the demermemoriallibrary.org/new books. Hopefully that's making sense. And more information on the bottom here. We use the theme called Divi, and so we have more controls for Divi. And there's more controls here for a plugin called Talkify and MetaSlider. I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions. That's the really nitty-gritty. Now I want to move on to fun stuff. Any questions?
I don't see any questions at this time. Does anyone have any questions?
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Okay. Let's
Let's
move
take
on
it.
to the fun stuff. But first, a super fast design tutorial. The first thing I'm going to say is that you are all design experts because you know what you like and what you don't like. So the first lesson is font is important. You want to be able to first associate an appropriate font with appropriate to match the content appropriately. Okay, the second is you want to have text that's easily readable. So you don't want it too small and you don't want it too cursive. And again, you want it to match your purpose. So if you want your text font to be unprofessional or professional or silly or happy, that's all conveyed with font choices. Next, color matters. What does the color blue make you feel? It makes me feel clean and bright and summery. Now, just imagine if this Smart Water ad used the color brown. Would you want to buy a bottle of water stylized with the color brown? And what does brown make you feel? Not great, dirty, right? Gross, unclean. Colors. Don't use 800 colors. Let's go back to school and think about our color schemes, right? You can influence where your eyes go across the page with weight and color and size and space. You guys can go look at this a little bit more on your own time. But the big thing I want to say is your website should be used to convey your mission, your why, your purpose. So what your library mission is, you should look that up with your library team. It might be on your website, it might not be. Maybe you need to develop a library mission. But essentially, you need to convey the reason behind your services. Okay, you don't want to just promote story time, author visits, Steam. You don't want to just promote stuff. You want to promote the whole mission of the library and say, oh yeah, and we offer story time to support this. Okay. So it's good to have favorite websites in your back pocket because it will inspire you. What functions do you want to see? What colors do you want to see? What websites can you copy? Those kinds of things. And I did see a question about statistics, but I think we're going to save that for the very end. Because now it's time to customize with caution. So on the front end of your website or on the back end of your website, you can get to your appearance area. I like to edit it while looking at it. So theme customizer. Hopefully these controls are familiar to you. These are the WordPress block editing tool complements, right? So when you're editing in WordPress on the front end, come on, baby. It'll look like this. All of these same controls are found over here right now. So general settings, your site identity is the title of your library and your tagline. A lot of these will be familiar from the back end. Layout settings, how big across do you want it? Do you want it to have a box layout or not? Accent colors, typography, how big do you want the body font size to be? Okay, so this is body font size. Well, you want to make it easily readable by people. You want to make the colors not hurt their eyeballs, right? So what are we talking about? When we're talking about design, we're talking about accessibility. You want to design with your population in mind. So, is this easily readable? Yes. Is there enough contrast? So if I have vision loss, am I still able to read it pretty easily? Yes. Is there enough contrast so that it's easy for me to read? If this was very black on green, then it might be harder for me to read. So you don't want to make people work too hard to read the content on your website. And that applies to your font choices, your sizes, your colors, all of that. And if you're at a loss of where to start with color, ask for your library logo. When your library got its logo, did they provide a suite of colors with that? If you don't have a library logo, does your library tend to use the same colors all the time? Find out what that is. If you don't have one, maybe make a few for yourself, right? Maybe look at the colors of your high school and school district, maybe play off of those a little bit. Do some experimentation, but in the end, make sure there's a lot of contrast for readability. Make sure the size is larger so you don't have to work to read it, because all of that leads into accessibility. So, accessibility. Accessibility and making it easy for people to access and use your website all works with design and search engine optimization. Well, what the heck is that? So search engine optimization is making your website super readable so that Google will treat you well in search results. If you have alternative text for images, Google loves that. If you have an order to read the content, Google loves that. Well, what does that mean? Headers. Just like in writing a paper, you have a title and then you have subtitles and maybe sections. You're doing that to your website. So you need a title for every page. If you have additional content, you want to give those content areas labels. So this could be library board members is heading size 2. If you take a look at the WordPress tour guide, you'll notice that the size of a header goes from 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 being the biggest, the number one. I'm number one. I'm the biggest. And as you go down the page, you want to use increasingly large headers so that it first directs the traffic of the browser that's reading your website. And also because persons with vision loss who use screen readers to access your website, the screen reader is going to follow your headers down the page and read them the content in that order. Isn't that pretty awesome? Also, pretend this is an image. Okay, so here's this image here. When I hover over it, it says gingerbread dough. That's the alternative text working for you. If you have nothing there, a screen reader will not be able to communicate anything about that image to someone who's using a screen reader. The internet browser, Google, will not be able to read any image or information off of that image. So you're adding an alternative text to describe an image works both for accessibility, design, and search engine optimization. That is a lot that I just threw at you. The long story short is go use headings or titles that go from the biggest to smallest as you progress down the page. Add alternative text to all images that provide information. If they're purely decorative, there's no need to add alternative text. I want to stress color and contrast again. If I used a yellow font here, would that be super accessible? No, it would hurt my eyeballs People with vision loss might not be able to even see yellow on white. And it just is not good design. It's not good design. So do you see how accessibility design and search engine optimization all work together there? It's a package deal. When you're talking about one, you're talking about all of them. Font and size. WordPress websites are built to be mobile friendly and accessible. Come here, baby. What I'm trying, oh, here we go. So as I drag the corner and move my browser screen to be smaller, the images are changing. That shows you that WordPress and this Divi theme are responsive. I'm sure if you opened up this website on your computer, it would look different than it looks on mine. That's because I'm using a teeny tiny laptop. If you had a big monitor screen, this page would grow to fit your screen. If you were viewing it on a tablet, it would shrink. And if you were viewing it on a phone, it would shrink even more. So that is something to consider to build for accessible and mobile design. And that is something to consider when you're setting your font sizes. So when you're on a laptop, you might want to increase the size from the traditional 12-point font to be larger. This font is set to size 18, and it is, for me, it's very easily read on my screen. This title header is set to, I want to say, size 30, and it's a little bit more bold, so it naturally differentiates between the sections. Now, when I'm on my phone, I don't want to have small text. My phone is already small in my hand. I want it to have larger text so it's easier to read. And you can play with those settings in your theme customizer or appearances tab. No matter where you need to click to get there, it's important to play with your typography settings. So the body text size is set to 18, the header text is 30. These are the different colors. Okay, you can choose different fonts here. I'm pretty lazy. Most of the time I just leave it to default. And that's because WordPress is built in this wonderful way where they have a design team that designs the template that's given to you so that it looks nice, right? So if you use the default font, a team has designed it a certain way so that it looks nice and is accessible. I'm going to pause there, and then I have like 2 more points before we open her wide up for questions. Does anybody have any questions on some of those details? I threw a lot at you, but I put as much as I could into the notes. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I don't see any questions yet except for the one you saw from Sarah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one thing. So let's say you get really whipped up into designing and throwing all the content on the page before you forget what you want on the page. And then you realize, gosh, I don't think I put any alternative text on anything. Well, a shortcut is to go to your back side and find your navigation bars. And on there, you will find Media Library. Again, with all the images in there. What you could do is set aside 10 minutes this month to go through every image and make sure there's alternative text. Look at this. I didn't add any alternative text. Well, this one is kind of a decorative image and it doesn't convey any information, but maybe it does. Maybe you could say gingerbread dough story time kit. Period includes ready-made dough and cookie cutter in the shape of a child. Okay, let's go to the next image. Dungeons and Dragons, super cool. So maybe this looks purely decorative to me, so I wouldn't put anything in there. Oh, let's pretend this is a slider for story time. So you could say, join us for story time on Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. on Facebook Live. Do you see where I'm getting at here? It's easy to pop into the media library and do all of this at once. Right? Okay. So one last thing before we dig into questions, because I want to make sure we end on time here, is, and I'm going to switch so I can look at y'all if any of you guys have cameras on. The biggest thing is maintenance and upkeep. I would suggest that you open up your calendar or grab your physical calendar off your wall and pick a day every month to write a reminder to check your website and make sure it's updated. Does your website have something about Valentine's Day on it? You might want to update that. Does your website have a blog that has its last post from 2020? Well, it's March, so maybe you need another blog post. Or maybe your library board members have not been updated since 2019. Take a moment to update that. Don't feel like you have to tackle every single page every single day, but set aside some specific time segments each month to look at your website. You don't have to do it all at once. It doesn't have to take you hours and hours. Just pick one thing every once in a while. So, like I said, if your website is not updated, you're just hurting yourself, because website behavior now means a viewer might be there for a few seconds, and if they see the last time you updated this slider says 2019, well, maybe you're closed, right? If you go to a business website and you see that it says, come join us February 14th, 2018 for cookie decoration, I'm going to assume that this is no longer a business and they're going to click away. People are very choosy and picky. So you want to keep that information updated. Now, if you don't want to be spending your time updating your website all the time, you can have undated things. You can have a beautiful picture of your library and a search box that says, what will you discover next? That would never go out of style, right? So choose how much you want to be on your website, what your time is capable of doing and tackling. If you click on a link and it brings you to an error page, fix that. Update what needs updating. Look at what other people are doing. If you have no idea where to start, make sure your content is correct. Are you still doing story time in person? Maybe not. So maybe do a quick update there. I'm going to stop talking, Shauna. I'm going to turn it back to you.
Got it. Thank you, Anne.
Mm-hmm.
Anne, how do we look at stats on WordPress?
How do we look at stats on WordPress? Well, my friends, I am a cheater. I use a tool that gives me my statistics elsewhere. I don't use the statistics within WordPress. And you'll notice in the plugins area, we have this plugin called Matomo. And that's because my technology team here at IFLIS and WVLS and Northern Waters, we use a dashboard that collects all of our statistics. So that is one tool that we use. You can also add in Google Analytics as a plugin into your website. And how you do that is you go to add new, and search for Google Analytics. Now, I do know that if you are using a WordPress website supported by WordPress, you are supposed to be able to see statistics actually in your back end on the left-hand side. So who asked that question? Are you able, do you know who asked that question?
That was Sarah, yeah, at Argyle.
Okay. Yeah, so Sarah, if you pop into your website and if you use WordPress, on the left-hand side, there should be a spot that says statistics. But if you don't have a spot that says statistics, you want to add that capability with Google Analytics would be the best bet. And working with your technology person to get that set up, because most times Google Analytics requires like an API code or something to that effect. And I'm sorry, but every single website is very unique, and getting it to function the way that you want it to takes a little elbow grease sometimes. But once it's there and it's beautiful. So sorry if that wasn't the most helpful. But
We have another question, Anne. Thank you.
Google Analytics people. Okay, what's the next one?
Yeah. So can you show how to add uniformed links to catalog, Libby, Badger link? We have them randomly scattered in different sizes. I would like them all rectangle and lined up.
Okay. What website are you working from? Do you know?
Oh, McCoy.
Okay. I want to see ya.
McCoy Public Library.
Aha. Found you. Okay.
Okay.
I am assuming you're talking about this area. Haha.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm going to say is these images are all different sizes, and that's why you're having trouble lining them up. So if you are able to create an account with Canva, you can match them up all to be the same size, and then you'll have such an easier time making them match up nicely. So what am I talking about? All the time, I make custom sized images in Canva by clicking Create a Design and Custom Size and choosing a size that I would guesstimate to be good for the website. So on our website, and a lot of the websites that I service, the general blurb size, so what these usually are, is 300 by 300. Now, if you take a peek at your images that you're using here, first you're going to want them to be the same orientation or makeup. So do you want them all to be square in dimension or rectangle? Okay. In my case, I've chosen to make unique square icon templates in Canva. Oops. Maybe I can show them to you a different way. I'll show them to you a different way. So on the Rib Lake Public Library website, you can see that, yes, I made my own. I used the WizCat imagery to make my own button, right? I stole this and I stole that. And I stole the ancestry type and I made it into a square. And I stole the Badger link imagery and I made it into a square. And same thing with Learning Library Express. And obviously I've been dragging my feet for 5 years to do it for Consumer Reports because I hate their design, but I would make it into a square. And you do that by going, let's say 250 by 250, create new design. And then you go across the internet and search for a Badger link or whatever resource you're looking for and grab the image that you would like. So this, oh, ha ha ha. So you grab the logo and plop it into Canva and make it look nice. So here's for Three Lakes genealogy. I stole it and I put it in here and I made it into a square. And then I would click download JPEG, download it. Once that's downloaded, I'd grab my next tool and I would say family search. I want to make a button for you. So I stole this image from the internet and I'm putting it in here, and then I'll steal this in here and I'll cut her down to size so that it's actually their logo and text, and then I'll download that. And then, so you can make all of your buttons the same using their images, and then go to your website and plunk them all in, and they'll all look nice and neat, right?
Tara says thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's like, I love that kind of thing. I'm like, I can do better than you. And then you make this really cool design.
We have a question from Janelle.
Okay.
Is there a way to delete all posts / information from the website without actually deleting the whole thing? Our previous director had started a blog but never actually published it. It was sort of halfway done. Nothing was ever completed.
Yeah. So on the back end, there should be a spot where you can see, it says click, it says posts, or let me see, I have a cheat sheet here. Pages posts. So your controls might look like this, or you might have this kind of look, but you can see that post button right there. So click into your posts and you'll see that I created test blog posts in the past. And when this website goes live, what I'm going to do to get rid of that specific post is I can go here and put it into trash, or I can do a quick edit and change it to draft, or take it off of the categories, or have it password protected. You can do all kinds of stuff to get rid of it. The other thing to note is if I ever click trash on a post, oh my gosh, I feel like it disappeared and it was an accident. Remember up at the top for the comments, it had spam, trash, approved. Well, the only way to get rid of a post permanently is to then go into your trash can and delete permanently. Duh, duh, duh. And you can also restore posts. There's only a very few instances when you click delete on something that it's actually deleted. But that's for another day. Is that helpful? Did I go too fast? So find posts in your navigation. Find your specific one. And you can do a quick edit and unpublish it or put it into draft, or you can click trash. Back to you, Shauna.
Great. I hope that was helpful, Janelle. Does anyone else have any questions? These were such great specific questions. I love when you just can have somebody give you a quick answer like that.
Yeah. And remember, just because this might not look exactly what your back end looks like doesn't mean you can't get there. I want to give a quick plug for the Divi theme. A lot of you might be using the other free themes that are available through WordPress. This Divi theme is actually a paid for theme, but it makes it so I can design it however I want. I don't have to rely on a theme to make it look a certain way. I can plug things in and change the design, and it's just a beautiful way to do it. And there is a cost to it, but if you want to learn more about Divi. But if you're operating on a zero budget, all of the themes are more than capable of doing what you need them to do.
We have a couple of minutes left if anyone does have any questions. about WordPress. I agree that sometimes what you were saying, and the sidebar there can look different depending on your screen, so that can be tricky for me when I'm trying to help folks out. You have to
Mm-hmm.
just kind of mosey around and find where it's
Yep.
at.
The good news is your websites are still fine, are still adaptable, mobile, responsive. That's the word I'm looking for.
Mm. Well, if no one has any further questions, we can get going early. Thank you so much for those questions, and thank you so much, Anne, for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Really appreciate it. And if folks need any further support moving forward, please let me know, or someone here at the system. Sarah says, thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Oh,
And
thank you.
Judy says, wonderful overview, great information to someone who hasn't been involved with website except letting someone else know it needs to be updated. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Also, Kristen says, thank you. There's a lot to chew on and I'm excited to go play.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, good to hear. Stacy says, thanks, Anne and Shauna.
Yeah. And you can always
Okay.
go back and watch the recording.
Yeah. That'll be available for you, and I'll give you more information about that too.
Mm-hmm.
And Stacy says thanks. Kelly says thanks too.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Again, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'll be also sending you a survey and an anonymous survey. You can tell us what you thought. And I do hope everyone has a great weekend. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.